Hi, everybody. My name is Heath Einstein, and I am Dean of Admission at Texas Christian University, and welcome to our May Facebook Live event. We're going to give it just a few seconds for some folks to log in, and then we are going to get to it. We got lots to share with you, and we want to make sure we get your questions answered as well. So we'll go in about 30 seconds. Meanwhile, while you're waiting, please feel free to comment. Use the comment box to chat, and that's where we're going to see your questions. We're coming to you live from North Texas. We want to know where you're coming to us from as well. Over the last couple of months, we've had these Facebook Live sessions, and we have been able to connect with people from all over the place, and it's been a lot of fun. So go ahead and put in the comments, introduce yourselves, and tell us where you're coming from. Lucy, it's good to see you and your mom. We can't see you, but well, let's say it's good to be seen, and it's great to have you here. Hey, Priscilla. Good to have you here from here in Mansfield, just outside Fort Worth. Lauren, all the way from upstate New York, Syracuse, or as they say there, Syracuse. And I love that picture of you with your horn frog sign. By the way, speaking of swag, because that's a piece of swag that we gave to all of our admitted students, I am using the TCU ring light that we gave away for the first time. I'm pretty pumped to be using that. My colleague here, April's doing that too, so that's pretty sweet. Jennifer from the Bay Area. I'm from Southern California originally, so great to have another Golden Stater here. Folks from Florida and Texas and all over the place. Really cool. Okay. Hey, Sarah from New Jersey. My wife was born in New Jersey, so we've got that connection going for us. All right, so we're going to get started. Again, my name is Heath Einstein, Dean of Admission at TCU, and we have a very special session planned for you tonight. This session that we do on Facebook Live, and we do it every month, is on course selection. And I have a very special guest with me this evening who I'd like to have introduce herself. April, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone. As Heath mentioned, my name is April Yandel. I work in the Office of Admission and serve as the Associate Director for Transfer Admission. Great to see everyone.
Yeah, and April, this is really fun to be doing this together with you. So this session is geared toward both high school students who are thinking about courses for next year and college students who are also thinking about courses for next year, or perhaps courses for the summer, with summer session right around the corner, and how to sort of best position yourself for admission to TCU and even admission to college in general, and how not only for admission, but also for scholarship, because of course, getting into college is only half the battle. Then it's how to pay for it. So we definitely want to give you some pointers on that as well. Now, we start all of our programs with a land acknowledgement. And even though neither April nor I are physically on the TCU campus at the moment, we are certainly on campus in spirit. And actually, both of us were on campus earlier today. So this is a campus event. And so we do start with a land acknowledgement. We are forever grateful to the Native peoples on whose land we sit, and who have been on this land since time immemorial. And in particular, we pay homage to the Wichita and affiliated tribes. And that is the Native community. Those are the Native communities on whose land TCU specifically is located. The next time you're on campus, I would strongly encourage you to go to the monument that was erected about 2.5 years ago between Reed Hall and Jarvis Hall, very, very centrally located on campus, and take a look at the monument that we put up as a tribute to the Wichita and affiliated tribes. This is the third in a series that we've started, and I think when you get to a third now, it becomes a series, right? The first time it's like it's just a one
Okay, I think Heath might be frozen, so I'll go ahead and take over for now. I wasn't sure if I was frozen or if Heath was frozen, but it looked like it might be him. So thanks everyone for being patient and rolling with this. We've been doing this virtual thing for a while now, and we think that you're always as prepared as ever, and then things still can go a little wonky. So I'm sure that when Heath is reconnected, he'll join us again. I'm not sure where he was going next. He actually, was going to take the lead, and I was just going to follow. So I don't mind taking over now and just holding the stage until Heath is able to reconnect. I know that tonight we were going to. Oh, look, there's a comment that says just Einstein is frozen, not you, Yandel. So thank you for confirming that, Susie. Oh, he's back. I stalled for as long as I could. I was about to tell some really bad jokes that probably would have been super corny. So I'm glad you're back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry, everybody. I hope I don't continue to have connectivity issues. Boy, that's embarrassing. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. I was saying that now this is the third in the series of programs that we've done. Yep. We did one on campus visits and standardized tests. Last time we did scholarship. This time we're doing course selection. And next time, just to give you a little bit of a teaser, we're going to do a session on making good use of your summer, because we are right about to head into the summer months. So we do this, though, really because we think there's a lot of great information to share. And we think this is a really useful format and an informal way to let you know, hey, we're real people, in the Office of Admission. We don't just exist behind a curtain. And so we wanted to do that for you. This is a very unscripted kind of event. I think we've got both April and I have some talking points, some bullet points that we're going to get through, but mostly we just want to hear from you and answer your questions. And then at the outset, I wanted to acknowledge Rob Berline from Alumni Relations, Amy Peterson from Marketing and Communication, and Liz Rainwater from our own Office of Admission. They're all working behind the scenes to make sure that this happens. Okay, curriculum choice. So you might have already chosen classes for the summer. You might have already chosen classes for the fall. I still think it's worth us going through and talking about some of those choices, because it's not too late to make some changes. If you hear something tonight that suggests maybe you should, or hopefully fortifies for you the idea that you've actually made the right choices. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what it is that we actually require at a minimum, at a bare minimum, to be admitted to TCU. And first, we're going to talk about on the first year admission side, meaning students who are coming directly from high school to TCU, having not enrolled anywhere else at another college first. So at a bare minimum, students must take 19 courses, 19 core academic classes during the course of their high school career. That's just in order to be eligible to apply. And that's important. And by the way, that is listed in our course catalog. The course catalog, April, I took a grad class almost 20 years ago in legal issues in higher education. One of the things I remember from that class is that your course catalog serves as your contract with the university. So I've never forgotten that. So now, of course, we don't print like hard copies of the course catalog anymore. That's like for old people like me, but it can be found online. And what you'll see in there is 19 minimum required classes, 4 in English, 3 in each of the core academic areas other than English. So that would be math, science, social science, or history, and languages other than English. Okay, so 4 English, 3 in the others. That's the minimum required. But that doesn't mean that's what you should be taking, right? I say this to my own children all the time. I've got 3 kids. My oldest is about to enter high school next year. I'm a nervous wreck already. I'm telling you that up front. And I always say, you don't want to shoot for the minimum. You want to shoot higher than that if you are capable of achieving higher than that. And so we always talk in our office about, what is it that is achievable for each student? Are our students taking advantage of what's available to them, and also what they're really capable of doing? So there is that minimum number, but that's not necessarily going to mean that your curriculum will be identified as the strongest curriculum available, okay? So when we're going through an application, part of that review process is actually looking at your high school. Your high school sends us a profile, and the profile will tell us what were the courses available. And we're gonna see what choices you made along the way. And did you, for example, decide, well, I took 3 years of math in high school, and I know that TCU only requires 3 years. I got through Algebra 2 Trig, and I decided I want to do something else. I'd rather just stop taking math. That's okay, maybe. It depends on, well, do you want to study science and engineering or engineering in college, or something in the math field? And if that's the case, you probably don't want to stop at Algebra 2 Trig, right? Or another question we might ask ourselves is, well, the student, yeah, you took those 3 years and you got A's in each of those years, okay? So why didn't you add that 4th year? What was it that was stopping you? That might cause us to ask that question. You might in turn have said, I didn't want to take that class, not just because math isn't my favorite subject, but I actually had something else I wanted to take in its place, okay? So a general rule of thumb for high school students, I think, if you want to be competitive for admission to a place like TCU, is plan to take 5 academic courses in each of the 4 years of high school. So if going into your senior year, you say, I'm not really crazy about math, but you pick up a second English class in its place because you love English and you're planning on majoring in creative writing, that's awesome. That's a really strong curricular choice, a curricular choice that's made with purpose. If on the other hand, you're saying, you know what, I don't love math, so I think I'm going to drop it. And I don't really love history either, so I think I'm going to drop that. And you're only taking English and science and a language other than English, then that's probably not going to be a wise decision. It's certainly not going to put you in the most competitive position possible. So I think that that's important to know. We look at a student's strength of curriculum, and we actually will assign a rating to each student. In order to achieve the highest rating possible, we want to make sure that you are taking an appropriately rigorous curriculum. And I'm really careful, and we touched on this a little bit in one of our previous sessions. I'm really careful to use that language, appropriately rigorous, as opposed to most rigorous, because I think that there is a perception that in order to be admitted to college, you have to take every advanced class that's offered under the sun. That's not actually true. What we have learned through our analysis and from what we've seen from some external studies as well is that once a student has taken about 5 advanced classes, and when I say advanced, that could be advanced placement, it could be international baccalaureate if that's what your school uses. Some schools don't have any classes at the AP or IB level, but they might have just honors classes, whatever is considered the most rigorous at your school. If students take about 5 of those classes, they have proven that they can do college level work. And so we asked ourselves a couple of years ago, why are we forcing students to take 10 and 12 and 15 AP courses when they don't actually need that in order to demonstrate to us that you can do the work? So we actually have capped it in our system. The maximum score you can get in our sort of strength of curriculum rating system can be achieved by taking only 5 advanced classes. Okay, now, don't get me wrong. If you want to take more than that and you are capable of achieving at a high level, go for it. We love that. We want to see you take a lot of classes if those classes are truly of interest to you and you can handle it. What I see far too often is students, they take so many advanced classes that they really start to struggle. Okay, not everyone can take AP everything. I couldn't have done that. When I was in high school, I know my last name's Einstein, but if I had tried AP physics, I would have failed and failed miserably. But more than that, the effort that it took to fail miserably would have adversely impacted all of my other classes as well. So we often get the question, right? Should I take the honors class but get a B, or should I take the on-level class and get an A? And the joke in admissions is, well, of course you should take the honors class and get an A. But of course, in that paradigm, that wasn't an option. But similarly, my answer is always, if you can challenge yourself and take the harder class, even if that means getting a B, so long as it doesn't mean that you're now dropping from A's to B's in every other class, then go ahead and challenge yourself in that way. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay, let's see. I've already talked for a bunch, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions out there that we want to get to. So I'm going to pass the baton over to April, who's going to give some basic information about the transfer process and course choices, and then we'll get to your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Heath. Yeah, I can see great questions rolling in, so I'm really excited to be here and have this opportunity to talk about what this looks like from a transfer side. You know, when a transfer student is reaching out to us, a lot of times they're going to ask, what should I take to transfer to TCU? And we say, well, gosh, there's a lot of things you can take when you're at the college level. So we recommend students focus on a certain type of curriculum, knowing that really, as long as you take the right amount of credits and hit a good GPA, you're going to be admissible as a transfer student. But our advice is typically that if a student's looking to transfer, first and foremost, they want to attend a college or university that's regionally accredited. So just make that note if you're even thinking about taking classes at another college or university. TCU accepts courses that come from regionally accredited institutions, not just accredited, because there are a lot of different types of accreditations out there. The key word is regionally. So courses that taken at a regionally accredited institution are typically going to transfer into TCU as something. But what we often recommend is that students are choosing those core type of classes, that general education type of coursework that you would be taking in high school. So really, a lot of the same subject areas that you mentioned in your spiel from a first year side, from a high school perspective, we encourage that students are taking those core type of classes: math, English, history, science, speech, sociology, literature, because those are most transferable really into any school. And so you're really setting yourself up best if at another college, as you prepare to transfer to a university like TCU, you're taking those core level classes. We realize that the core curriculum at TCU is going to differ from the core curriculum in the Texas Common Core at the public school level and really the core at other institutions, and that's fine. But generally speaking, if you're aiming for those general education, general subject classes, those are going to be what's most transferable and what's most applicable to your degree at TCU, regardless of the major you pursue. We also recommend that students are going after the college level classes. And what I mean by that is they may get to another institution, a student may get to another school, and they aren't quite college level ready in certain subject areas: reading, science, math, English. And so they may need to take some of those developmental or remedial level courses. Perfectly acceptable to take those, especially if it's going to better prepare you for the next level up. But realize that those classes that are just below college level, that are more like prep courses, don't transfer to TCU. So they can't really hurt you to take them. They just also won't really help as far as the transfer admission review process goes. I always tell a student, if you need to or want to take a developmental course, you should do that, because it's probably going to best prepare you for taking that actual college level math that we're eventually going to require once you get to TCU. So choosing those core classes at the college level and just keeping in mind what doesn't transfer. So, that's generally what transfers over. Classes that don't transfer are, technical type of classes, vocational classes, classes that satisfy like the workforce curriculum. So these are sort of classes that don't really fit into a subject area. And the reason they're hard to even evaluate for transferability is because TCU doesn't offer a lot of classes like that. And so it's really hard to evaluate them and determine what they would equate to. And most times they don't equate to anything. And so we can't transfer those. So for a student who's looking at the transfer option, focusing on classes at a regionally accredited school and focusing on those general education courses, those familiar subjects, those core competencies that we all know, those are the type of classes that we encourage a transfer student take before they get to TCU.
All right. That's great information, April. So let's start getting to some of these questions. And please, everybody, feel free to comment. We want to be able to get to as many of these as possible. And we'll start with the ones that pertain to things that we have talked about so far. First of all, I need to correct myself and give credit to a couple of folks who were asking about the foreign language requirement. I misspoke. It's not 3 years, it's 2 years of a foreign language, but where the 3 comes in is often students will start a foreign language in middle school. They'll take up through the 3rd year in high school. So if you start, let's say you take Spanish 1 in 8th grade, and then you take Spanish 2 in 9th grade and Spanish 3 in 10th grade, you will have 3 years of credit, but 2 years were done in high school. The other thing is we do require a 3rd year of a language for us to be able to consider you for that highest level of scholarship. So we do want to see students take up through that 3rd year, but technically speaking, it is correct that you do need just 2 years. One of the other things to consider, because sometimes I hear of students, they'll say, you know what, I took Spanish in 8th grade and then Spanish 2 in 9th grade. My high school requires that I take another year. I don't really love Spanish, so I think I'm going to take Arabic. I'll take the 1st year of Arabic. There's nothing wrong with that. From a technical standpoint, you have now completed the requirement. But the whole purpose of taking a language other than English in your high school or middle and high school years is to demonstrate proficiency, right? To be able to communicate in another language and learn about another culture. To do that only through the 1st year or just a 2nd year and then another 1st year isn't quite the same, doesn't have quite that same impact as if you had continued in the same language for that 3rd year. So if you're sort of teetering, like, do I start that 2nd language or do I continue with the 1st language? I would suggest continuing with the 1st language. Now, going back to an example I gave earlier, where I suggested there may be a student who isn't crazy about math, but maybe would use that space to pick up something else, that would be a fully appropriate time to pick up a 2nd language other than English. So let's say by the time you're a senior in high school, you up through AP Spanish 5, let's say Spanish literature, because you started in 8th grade, and now senior year, you've got that 5th, and you just love languages. So you want to start taking Mandarin or you want to start taking Italian or any other language just because you find it interesting. That's great. Definitely go about doing that. So I did want to clarify what that language requirement is. Okay. Let's see. Cameron asks, as an incoming freshman, are we able to sign up for classes now? The answer is no, not yet. You will do that at orientation. You can sign up for orientation now by logging into the portal, and then at orientation is when you will be doing that. Elizabeth is asking, do you consider pre-AP as advanced? And the answer is no. For the purpose of our evaluation, what we would consider advanced classes is once you reach that AP level, that's when we sort of check that. Now, if you're taking pre-AP classes as a 9th or 10th grader, presumably that will lead you toward that AP. It's on the AP track and you will get there. So certainly nothing to worry about. Sally is asking about dual credit. And is dual credit considered advanced credit? And the answer is yes. When we're going through and evaluating a student's curriculum rigor, if you are taking dual credit classes, we consider that an advanced level. You're going to be earning college level coursework. You're doing college level coursework and will be given college credit when you come to TCU. So yes, we would consider that. April, now might be a good time for us to talk about that. And you may have said this when I cut out, so I apologize if you've already covered this. But can you talk about dual credit earned during the high school years? And sometimes you might see that as from a student who's transferring, right? They may have taken dual credit classes in high school. They may have then gone on to pursue coursework, whether at a 2 or 4 year school. And how do you look at that in the transfer admission process?
Sure. I didn't talk about this. I did just fill the space with awkward conversation while you cut out. So no worries. Dual credits are definitely something that we see a lot on the transfer admission side. And for a transfer student, that credit is going to come with you to TCU. It would come with you as a 1st year student too. As a transfer student, we need to see that coursework has also been completed post high school graduation in a long semester, either a fall or a spring. So when a transfer student's applying to TCU, while we are going to require that high school or that dual credit transcript from high school, we're also going to require that they have spent at least one other long semester, which a long semester is a fall or a spring, taking college classes somewhere full time. So it's certainly helpful to take them. They're applicable to your TCU, credit evaluation, and can be applicable to your degree plan. But we'll need a little bit more than that from a transfer admission review.
Great. Dennis asks, what years of your high school transcript are the most important? And the answer is all of them. Well, I'll answer. It's kind of a joke, but kind of serious. We do want to see 4 years of your high school record, right? And we want to see what kind of progress you've made. So I would say, of course, we're always looking at trend and performance. If the trend is upward, let's say you started in 9th grade and you were sort of a B student, and then in 10th grade you were a mixture of you had a mixture of A's and B's, and then by the time you got to your junior year, you had turned into an all A student. That's a much better situation than a student who started with all A's. By sophomore year, things got a little rough, and it was like A's and B's, and then by junior year, now we're all in the B section. The GPA might be the same between those two students, but we'd much rather see the student who's on that upward trend. So I think in that sense, you could say the work that we see that is most recent, that is going to be more indicative of how the student's going to perform during college, would be considered the most important. But that's not to suggest that how you perform in the early years of high school is not important. So I hope I answered that question, Dennis. It's all important. The most recent grades are probably the ones that can carry a little more weight. April, getting back to the transfer process, and you and I talked about this actually earlier today. Can you talk about the transfer scholarship process? How do you go about looking at students for scholarship? What is the GPA needed? And are there special requirements, say, for our transfer chancellor scholarship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be worth at least noting the minimum transfer admission requirements and then build on that for the scholarship review process. So generally speaking, a transfer student who's coming in with at least 12 college credits post high school graduation and a GPA of 3.0 or higher makes you eligible for transfer admission and a transfer scholarship. Now, if you have 24 or more credits transferring in, we actually won't ask for the high school credentials anymore. So 12 to 23 credits is sort of that range where you're reviewed as a transfer, but you still have to submit both your college and your high school transcripts. Students who will complete 24 college credits at minimum by the time they start at TCU, they're considered a true transfer, and we no longer ask for the high school credentials. And 2.7 is the average GPA coming in, but the 3.0 is really the sweet spot, because for a transfer student with 12 credits and a 3.0, you are eligible for a transfer scholarship. And as the transfer GPA that we calculate increases, then so can the scholarship that is awarded. Particularly the Chancellor Scholarship is our only, I guess, really the most competitive award. I think we all could say that for the first year side as well. We review transfer students who are going to start at TCU with 60 completed college credits, again, post high school, and the GPA coming in at around a 3.85 or higher. It's really important to note that the 60 credit hours that we're referring to is that post high school coursework. So it's college level classes, it's college level credits that were completed in a classroom in college post high school graduation. And the reason we really stress that is, courses that were completed as a dual credit student, again, they transfer with you, but they're not what we're actually looking for the Chancellor Scholarship. They can be factored in, but we really want to see what you've been doing post high school. To the same point, AP credits are oftentimes brought with students to TCU. And while you do get credit at TCU for AP credits, they can't be factored into the transfer admission GPA and the transfer admission credit amount, really, because they don't have a grade associated, right? So it's a score that a student achieved an AP exam that is equating to X amount of college credits. So that's great, and that does come with the student, but it's not calculated in the transfer credit amount for evaluation, for admission, and for scholarship. So I want to make sure I explain that difference there. But for the Chancellor Scholarship, it's a great award. Obviously, lots of students are interested in it. This year, I think our semifinalists are around 80 to 100 students, and we have 4 of those scholarships to give. So if that gives any indication on how competitive it is, really incredible students, of course, get reviewed for that. But it is quite the competition in that award specifically. All of our other transfer scholarships, though, are not nearly as competitive. We really do review each student individually for those, and if they have the hours in the GPA, they essentially get the scholarship.
Yeah, thanks, April. I'm actually, as you know, in the process of reviewing transfer applications for that Chancellor Scholarship right now. I read a bunch this morning, and I'm going to do some more tonight after we're off of Facebook Live and after I have a little dinner. And these students are incredibly impressive. We're just super excited that those students have asked or have demonstrated interest in TCU and can see themselves here. And that actually leads to a question that Juliana asked, which is about our selectivity and that TCU has become a really popular place, both on the incoming first year and transfer front. Has it been more selective for high school seniors over the last 2 years? And the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. While it is true we have received an increased number of applications in recent years, it is also true that we have a little more space. We have the last 2 or 3 years admitted more students and have had slightly bigger entering first year classes. We think TCU is an amazing institution. I hope that you agree with us. And we want to make sure that we're accessible to a lot of people. And one of the criticisms you see of colleges right now, particularly the most selective colleges in the country, is that they have the financial flexibility and the resources to educate more students, and they're choosing not to. And I don't think we've taken that approach. I think our approach has been we've got the flexibility to educate more students, and we think TCU provides a world-class education, so we're doing just that. And so, Juliana, while we have increased in popularity a lot over the last decade, and we're really proud of that, and we know that there's a lot to offer, I'm also excited that we're not a school that's impossible to get into. So I always describe TCU as a selective but accessible school. Our acceptance rate in most years is somewhere between 40 and 50%. So by definition, that's selective. That means about half the students applying are admitted and about half the students who are applying are not admitted. So you know that if you've made it through, you've done something special, but we're not impossible to get into either. So I'm really pleased with that. And frankly, it wouldn't be very fun to work at a school where we had to deny admission to everybody. I wouldn't want to be at a school like that. April, can you talk about maybe how or at what point you look at high school records and at what point you don't look at high school records anymore?
Yeah, I mentioned a little earlier about how, a student who's coming in with at least 12 credits makes them a transfer student. 12 credits post their high school graduation makes them a transfer student. Once a student has taken, we come up with 12 because that's a full-time semester of college, right? So you've spent a long semester full-time enrolled in classes at minimum. 2 full-time semesters tells us enough information about your academic potential because it's a full year of college coursework. So once a student has completed 24 college credits or more, then we no longer look for the high school credentials. We no longer ask for them. So we won't look at high school transcripts and we won't ask for the test scores. So it's really hitting that 2 full-time semesters post the high school graduation that makes a student a true transfer in our eyes, and at the point which we no longer ask for their high school credentials.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we had actually advertised this session on social media in advance, and we had solicited questions from folks ahead of time. And Emily on Instagram asks, is it better for prospective nursing students to take statistics or pre-calculus in their senior year? This is a great question. And I think what I'd like to do is just sort of broadly talk about nursing. And I'll get to the specific question, Emily, that you asked. But it's important to know that in general at the university, when we are looking at students for admission, we're reviewing their curriculum and their curricular choices, to the university as a whole. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and nursing is probably the best example of it. Over the years, nursing has just become incredibly competitive. So while I mentioned to Juliana just a minute ago that we are a selective but accessible school, nursing is a little bit more selective, a slightly less accessible to the program. And the reason for that is not because we don't want to educate more nurses. We greatly value our nursing students, and we know there's a shortage of nurses in the country right now. The reason is because our program promises students that by the end of their second year, they will begin their clinical rotation experience. And so we're limited to the clinical opportunities that are available to us in the surrounding medical region. If we start over enrolling in nursing, we jeopardize the integrity of the program. So we can't do that. For that reason, there actually is a special sort of a secondary application process for our nursing students. We look for a couple of keys. One is, what kind of experience have you had, whether in the classroom or outside the classroom, that would suggest to us that nursing isn't just a fleeting interest, but rather is a life passion, something you just know that this is what you have always wanted to do, or even if it's not always, but it wasn't just something that came to you in a dream last night. The other thing that we're looking at is your course selection. So, and to the question specifically that Emily is asking, one of the classes that our nursing program says is a key indicator for success is statistics. It might not jump out at you right away that there would be a link between statistics and nursing, but there is. So we do want to see students take statistics if they're planning to major in nursing during their high school career. The other class that we like to see is anatomy and physiology. So if you have the opportunity to take those courses, and if you plan to major in nursing, that is exactly what you should be doing. Okay, hope that answers your question, Emily. Along those same lines, Matt asks, what would you recommend for someone looking to major in mathematics, class-wise? And that's pretty simple. Just continue taking math. Take as much math as you are able to get fit into your schedule. I would say at a minimum, we want to see students who've taken through pre-calculus. If you have the opportunity to take calculus, that would be preferred. And if you've already taken calculus by the end of your junior year, and you have the opportunity to take linear algebra or multivariable calculus, whatever's the next sequence, either at your school or at a surrounding community college, please don't stop taking math. If we see a gap in math after your junior year, that could lead to a negative decision for you. So just keep taking those math classes, Matt. Okay, Lisa asks, it says that unweighted GPA is used for scholarship, so no credit for IB or AP. And the answer is not really. I mean, we do look at your AP and IB classes. So the reason why we unweight the GPA, we look at a student's unweighted GPA, is because every high school weights their classes differently. At some schools, they're on a 10-point scale. Some schools are on a 100-point scale. Some schools are on a sort of standard 4-point scale. At some schools, let's say you have a 4-point scale, you might get 1 full point for taking an AP class. At another school, it might be a half a point. And so if we're comparing GPAs across all of these different scales, it's an apples to oranges comparison. So what we do is we strip away the weighting that's given, And no matter what scale the high school uses, we apply our own sort of again, that standard 4-point scale where an A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, and so on. And so everybody has an unweighted GPA so that it's an apples to apples comparison. But then what we do is we go back in and we rate every student's curriculum. And that's where we do look at how many AP, honors, IB, dual credit classes did you take? Have you met the conditions to achieve the highest rating possible? As I said earlier, if you've taken 5 AP classes, if your school offers AP, we'll give you the highest strength of curriculum rating, assuming the rest of the curriculum checks out. Or did you take something less than that? Or did you just take those 19 minimum core credits that were required, in which case, yeah, you're eligible for admission and you're eligible for scholarship, but you're going to get the lowest curriculum rating possible, and that could affect admission or scholarship. So it's not strictly looking at GPA. It's not strictly looking at a weighted or an unweighted GPA. It's just making sure that everyone's on a level playing field, and then we go from there. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, keep those questions coming. We want to make sure that we answer as much of them as possible. Grace asked about test optional, and I want to make sure I got to that. She asks, can you give information on the test optional aspect of applications? And I think that that's relevant here, even though we're talking about course selection. Course for high school students, you want to know to what degree we look at testing, and especially in this environment now where a lot of colleges have chosen to go test optional, and we were one of them. So I want to take a minute to just talk about that, so that everyone understands exactly how that works and how that came about. So it was, oh gosh, 14 months ago now, right? When COVID really started impacting the US. And like every other college, or most other colleges at least, in the spring semester of 2020, we sent our students home to finish out the semester remotely. Campus was really quiet. It was not a fun place to be. And at that same time, the College Board and ACT started canceling test administrations left and right. And we felt an obligation to make the call pretty early, with respect to whether we were going to require standardized tests of students who were at that point juniors in high school and who are now seniors in high school. Because when you're in March of your junior year, you're starting to think about what colleges you want to apply to. You need to know, is this college going to even allow me to apply if I haven't even taken a standardized test? So knowing what was happening with those test administrations, and knowing that the future was really murky, we didn't know what it was going to look like, we made the call that we were going to be test optional for this year. Okay, we didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but we knew that we had to make that call. And we knew that there were enough other colleges that had been test optional for a long time, even well before the global pandemic, that we could learn from them. We could call on our colleagues at other institutions and say, okay, how did you do this in a way that treated students equitably? And so this was a really interesting trial run for us this year, and it turned out to be really successful. And what we found is that we had an incredibly diverse applicant pool this year. We found that we could learn just as much about an applicant without looking at test scores. We could emphasize other elements of the application. And if you think about what a test score actually does for us, it has fairly limited predictive value, and it is part of our overall assessment of a student's likelihood to succeed in the classroom. But there's so much else to the application, namely what we're talking about tonight, the curriculum choices and the grades, that we knew that we could reach really strong conclusions without the test scores. So much so that we have already decided that we're going to continue our test optional policy for 2 more years. So if you're a current high school junior or sophomore and you apply to TCU, you will be applying in a test optional environment. Now, what the applicant pool looks like for the fall 22 entering class, so high school juniors, could be well different from the fall 21 entering high school class, because it's possible that next year there are going to be more test administrations available to students. Unclear right now because we still see cancellations, but by the time fall rolls around, there may be more opportunities. So we may see a higher percentage of students choose to submit test scores, but what we have committed to is that students won't be penalized by not submitting a test score. We had a lot of students this year who applied not having submitted test scores, and we had a lot of students who were admitted not having submitted test scores, and we have a lot of students who came to TCU or who've decided to come to TCU next year who never submitted test scores. All of those students were eligible for admission. All of those students were eligible for academic scholarships, and a fairly high percentage of students without test scores actually earned an academic scholarship. If you've got a 4.0 GPA, I don't care what high school you went to, you can do college level work. Okay, it's just that simple. So, so we're going to acknowledge that in our admission and financial aid process.
Also, Heath, I just want to jump in
Yeah.
I was going to say I'll jump in real quick to also add that test scores are optional for transfer students also. While we did ask for them before this past year and the events that led to us sort of going test optional, they were often not as focused on for a transfer admission review anyways. Really what we look for in the transfer admission review is the transfer credential. So how are you doing in your college classes? How are you performing at the college level? Because to us, that's the best indicator on how you'll perform in classes at TCU. And Heath, you said something earlier that I thought really resonated with the transfer admission review as well, and that is, what have you done most recently? That's what's the best indication to us on how you'll perform once you start here. So even for a transfer student who has a few semesters or even a few years of college coursework completed, if at the beginning it wasn't so strong, but it's slowly, improved and gotten better, and we see an upward trend, that's most important to us as well. We want to see what's most recent. And yeah, as far as test scores go, we are also test optional, like you all are on the first year side.
And April, I think you would agree with me that there are no two transfer students who are alike, right? And
right.
so, and to be fair, there are no two high school students who are alike either. But the high school journey, whether you're in California or Louisiana or Michigan, it's a fairly similar progression. Whereas our transfer students may be coming with completely different life experiences. They could be in different places in their lives. That some could be working full time, some could be parents, some could be students who just graduated from high school a semester ago and are looking to change. And so all of that is taken into account. Would you say that that's accurate?
100%. That's, I think, what I love most about my job is that there is such a diversity in the and just the pool of applicants that we have. Students really do come from everywhere and come to us at different points in their life and have different stories, and it's just, even their high school experiences look different, but then past high school, things just really set them apart from all of their peers that are applying as well. So I 100% agree.
Katya asks, and this is following up on the question we had before about the curriculum choice for nursing students. For all pre-professional science majors in the health medical fields, is that statistics choice a better choice over pre-calculus? And for that, I would say no, probably pre-calculus is going to be the better choice. Now, again, there are always reasons why a student might choose one over another. So, statistics is a really great class to have. And I say that I took graduate level statistics coursework, and I loved it. I think it's really fabulous, and it's a lot harder than most people would give it credit for. I think the skills that you're building by taking a pre-calculus class, generally speaking, would be preferable if you're planning to go into the hard sciences. So that would be my recommendation there. Okay, Jack asks, what % of students at TCU are in the honors program? So at TCU, we have 9 undergraduate colleges, 8 of which are what we would call degree granting colleges. The 9th is our John V. Roach Honors College. And when students apply for admission to the university as a first-year student, they have the option to also apply for admission to the Honors College. And the Honors College is a fabulous opportunity for students to really dig in an interdisciplinary way. And what I mean is I describe honors this way. It's really designed for students who are who want to be able to create bonds, those sort of connective tissues between two seemingly disparate fields. So if you're the kind of person who loves just staying up late, going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, you read something and then you see a link to something else, and that sounds really interesting, and you just sort of continue to link, then the Honors College might be a great option for you. To answer the question, Jack, for our incoming students, usually around 10, 11% or so of our incoming students are in the Honors College. It is a residential experience as well as an academic experience. So all students in their first year will live in Milton Daniel Hall, which is centrally located just beyond the outskirts of the campus commons. And then students have the option to pursue either departmental or university honors over the course of their 4 years, once they get into their upper level coursework in the Honors College. That doesn't mean that if you are not admitted to the Honors College, however, that you can't join the Honors College at a later time. So let's say either you applied for honors as an incoming student and you weren't admitted, or you didn't even think about doing it, and then once you're at TCU, you get to know some Honors College students, and you say, hey, that sounds really interesting. I think I could benefit from and give something to this college. After your first semester, if you have a minimum GPA of 3.5 at TCU, you are immediately eligible for admission into the John V. Roach Honors College. So that's a really exciting opportunity. Shannon asks, is there a date when transfer students will be notified if they are accepted? And the answer is we don't have a hard deadline when we send out all of our admission decisions for our transfer students. That's a little bit different from the way we do it for first year admission, where we have a singular date when every student is going to hear from us. For transfer, it's done more on a rolling basis. So typically, though not always, we try to be able to get those decisions turned around in about a month's time. Now, there could be some other elements at play. When you submit an application, there's some other supporting materials that you need to supply us with. So it's once we really get a completed application, that's when we have that turnaround time. April, did I answer that accurately?
Yeah, sorry, I had to step away for just a minute, but that's right. The average turnaround time is around 4 weeks, but it does depend on when we receive that last document. And we always encourage a student that if you are waiting to hear back from us, you feel like it's been enough time and you still haven't received a decision, always just reach out. We're happy to let students know where they fall in that review process.
Mm-hmm. And James is asking, April, when can transfer students make a campus visit?
Anytime that they want to. So our office hosts in-person visits Monday through Friday, somewhere between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And students, any student, first year or transfer, can register for those on our website. And we encourage that transfer students sign up for those as well. So if you're wanting to visit campus in person, you can sign up there. If you want to visit with the transfer team virtually, we have information sessions that we host every Friday at 1 o'clock. And of course, right now they're virtual. Back in the day, they were in person, and I think one day we'll move back into that. But even through the summer, we're still going to host those virtually.
Great. Chantal asks, for a homeschooled student, how do you assess curriculum or academic rigor since there's no institutional profile to judge their work against? This is a great question. First of all, for some homeschooled students, there are sort of associations where you can have a common curriculum and there are profiles that are given, but that's not always the case. And for students for whom that's not the case, we do want to see some course descriptions that will help us understand the material that you have been going over. And very often, and we have a lot of homeschooled students at TCU, certainly a lot who apply, we want to get to know you, and if not, I don't mean like necessarily have a formal interview, but have a conversation with you to get a sense of what it is that you've been doing during high school, and to assess in a really individual way. That's one of the great things about TCU is, despite the fact that we have 9,700 undergraduate students, we do take a very personalized approach to educating students, and it starts right here in the Office of Admission and goes straight through your years on campus. Evan asks, does taking the AP exam matter? And the answer is, for admission, no. We don't look at AP results for admission purposes. Now, where it does matter, where it can help, is in order for you to get advanced standing. You can earn college credits and be able to sort of skip over an introductory level class and take a next level class. We will accept scores of anywhere from 3 to 5, depending on the subject. And that's determined at the department level. So for some departments, they've determined that only a 4 or 5 will count on certain exams, and in other departments, they've said a 3 will count. I'll give you a clear example of that. The history department has determined that on the U.S. history, the APUSH, you could have, you need to have at least a 4 in order to get credit. Whereas the political science department has said on the government exam, you only need a minimum of a 3 in order to earn credit. So that's going to vary by department, and all of that is listed on our website. Let's see. There's a question, April, I'm going to put you on the spot, and if you don't know the answer to this, that's okay. For a transfer student from a 2-year military school, how much is the grant for the ROTC students with above a 3.25 GPA? Do you happen to know that off the top of your head?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know there is a scholarship available through our ROTC program for select students. The amount of that, I don't know, but I was just quickly trying to Google it to see if maybe it's on our website somewhere, but the amount itself, that I don't know off the top of my head. I'm really sorry, y'all.
No, that's okay. And that's a very specific question. Liz, if you call our office tomorrow, we will get that answer for you. So the number is 817-257-7490. That's the Office of Admission main line. And someone will be able to track down that information for you, because we definitely have it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, April.
I was going to say that's sort of a good cue to talk about the benefits that we do have for our veterans, those who have actually served in the U.S. Armed Forces, or those who are either a dependent of or a spouse to someone who has served in the military and is eligible for certain tuition benefits. So TCU is a member of the Yellow Ribbon Program, and students who are eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill, or students who maybe pass that on to their dependent or their spouse, can have their tuition at TCU covered completely. So there is some documentation, of course, that has to be submitted just to demonstrate what a student's eligibility is for their tuition benefits and for their military benefits. But TCU is a proud member of that program, and we are very thankful for our veterans, and we want them and their families to know that there's some really great benefits to coming to TCU. So we waive the application fee, we waive the enrollment deposit, and then of course once the evidence or the documentation that is evident of the eligibility is presented, then we do honor that and we waive their tuition, or it's covered through a scholarship. So certainly something that if students are listening to this are a veteran or have served or are currently serving, or if they have family that they want to pass that benefit on to, we encourage that they reach out and ask us more about that so we can make sure they know how to utilize those benefits for tuition at TCU.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, we have time for one last question, and I can see that Kimberly has asked a question about the Chancellor Scholarship. We spoke about the Chancellor Scholarship on the transfer side. We've not talked about it on the entering first year side. So I do want to mention that the Transfer Scholarship, the Chancellor Scholarship is a full tuition scholarship for our highest achieving students. And everybody who applies for TCU is automatically going to be considered for all of our scholarships, and that includes the Chancellor Scholarship. So it's not something that you need to specifically apply for. What we're looking for from students to be considered for the Chancellor Scholarship is demonstration of academic excellence and intellectual vitality and interest, and then somebody who is a high impact person in the community. And when I say community, that could mean in your school community or in the larger community where you live. So it's not strictly based on GPA and or test scores if the student submits test scores. By the way, we have incoming Chancellor Scholars who did not submit test scores this year. So truly, we do not penalize students who don't submit test scores. But it's why we sometimes will get questions from students or parents, and they say, look, I have a 4.0 GPA and I had a 36 ACT. How was I not even invited to interview? And the answer is you wouldn't believe it. We have so many students who have great grades and scores. It's what else do you have that will suggest to us that you're going to be a high impact person on the TCU campus. So out of the anywhere from 19 to 20,000 applications we receive every year, we will typically invite somewhere between 140 to 150 to interview for the Chancellor Scholarship. And then usually 75 or 80 are selected and offered that scholarship. So out of a pool of 20,000 students to get down to 80, you can see it's pretty selective. You have to have that, all of that stuff. So it's strong grades. It's a great curriculum. It is somebody who's really taking advantage of everything that the school has to offer from a curriculum standpoint. It is somebody who has been, for lack of a better term, a mover and a shaker. Somebody who's going to be, and that doesn't, and I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that you've just held the title, right? There are lots of people who've got titles, but we see demonstrated through letters of recommendation and the way that students are writing passionately how they have really impacted community. And that's really critical because often the Chancellor Scholars at TCU are those who are leaders in our community as well. Now, to be sure, we have many, many leaders at TCU. Not all of them are Chancellor Scholars because, again, that's a fairly small program relative to the 9,700 undergraduate students we have at TCU. But those are sort of the keys that we're looking for. Okay, we have already exceeded our time together. April, didn't it fly by?
It really did. I can't believe it. And even with the little hiccup at the beginning, I think it went really well, and such amazing questions and amazing support from folks that have tuned in. So this is really fun. Thanks y'all for having me.
It was really fun. I had a great time too. We'll have to have you back at a later time.
Sure.
Yeah. The next Facebook Live event is going to be same time, 6 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, the 2nd of June. We try to do these on the first Wednesday of every month. And again, the next theme is going to be how to effectively use your summer. So hope to see you then. Otherwise, we wish you a great night and go Frogs.